When I was younger, I remember frequently being asked the question, if your house was burning down and you could only save one thing, what thing would you save? That used to be a difficult question for me to answer, but that isn't the case today. Simply put, I would save my journals. To me, these are the most important things in my possession. You can replace a phone, you can replace a credit card, but you cannot replace a journal. I'm really proud of these. I've been keeping a daily journal since May 28th of 2017, and I think it's a good habit that more people should start doing. So, why keep a journal? Well, I'll tell you why I started. Back in 2013, I went to Japan over the summer. My dad had told my sister and I that if we wrote about our day every day in a notebook, he'd give us a prize. So, I did this for the entire trip, and when I gave my notebook to my dad to collect my prize, I think he just gave it back to me. That was the prize, the notebook. Of course, my 6th grade self didn't quite understand that concept at the time, so I think my sister and I pressured him into getting us Target gift cards or something, I don't really remember. Fast forward 4 years to the end of my freshman year, and I stumbled upon a notebook in my bookshelf. I opened it up and read it, and was shocked. There were a lot of things I hadn't remembered. It was kind of scary to me that I had forgotten so much in the span of just 4 years. And that's when I started to write my journal. I was scared that I'd forget my time in high school and all the years to come. There's another reason why I write a journal, and that's to improve my handwriting. I kind of guessed it at the time, but I figured that if you'd write a paragraph every day, your handwriting would eventually get better. And take a look for yourselves. I'm not sure if this is solely the cause of the journal, but it undeniably helped. I think journaling has been a great addition to my life, and hopefully you're interested in the topic by now. So, how do you keep a journal? I'm going to divide this into 2 parts. The first part will be how I specifically journal, and if that's not appealing to you, I'll have some other ideas in the second half. My method of keeping a journal is pretty simple. All you need is a composition notebook and a pen. Please never use pencil. It will fade over time. Black and blue ink fade the least, so I recommend using one of those 2 colors. I definitely recommend using a composition notebook over a spiral notebook. Spiral notebooks tear easily, composition notebooks are more structurally sound. My writing format follows somewhat of a template. I've fine-tuned it over the years, and I like it. In the margin, I'll write the name of the city I'm in. This part can sometimes get complicated when you're traveling, but I usually just write the city I spend the most time in or the city I'm sleeping in. After that, I write the day of the week and the date. This next part's not really a daily thing, but if I have any notable dreams overnight, I usually write them first. Then I start writing about my day. I found that people struggle the most with this part. Don't worry, I struggled with it too. It'll feel awkward at first, but over time you'll get more comfortable at it and you'll develop your own voice when writing. My early journals read a lot differently than my newer, more recent ones. My newer style of writing suits me in the present, but it'll likely change in the future. Your writing will be awkward at first, but it will change over time into something that suits you. It sounds weird, but it will happen. Another thing lots of people struggle with is deciding what parts of their day to write about. My best recommendation is just to rewind through the day and write everything that seems significant. If that's too vague, just write about things that you think you'd be interested in reading about your day in like 4 years. Was it a good day? What did you do? Is there anything on your mind? Opinions are part of your day. I include them a lot in my writing. A lot of my recent entries include my opinions about the situation going on in Ukraine right now. Those will be interesting for me to look back and read in 2024, so I include them in my writing. I should also note that I usually write my journals right before I go to bed. Some people enjoy writing throughout the day, but I just prefer doing it at the end. Lastly, I finish off my journals by writing my signature and the time. I just like adding the time so I know when I went to sleep. And that's how I journal. City, date, dreams, description of day, opinions, signature, time. All it takes is like 15 minutes a day and you can have an entire collection of your life's activities. I'd also like to include a few more tips that I've just learned from experience. Every now and then, you should take the time and describe the mundane things in your life. I regret a lot of my entries that simply say work at 5, home at 10:40. Though it was mundane for me then, that entire event is lost to me now. almost all my entries about work are like that. Our most mundane tasks are sometimes the most interesting to look back upon. Also, the most important thing you can do when journaling is to stick to a routine. If you want to write daily, write daily. Force yourself to write at least something. It doesn't even have to be a paragraph describing your day. You simply have to write something so you do not break your habit. I had this happen a lot when I first started, but luckily I got out of that habit and into the journaling habit quick enough. But because of my mistake there are days in July of 2017 that I will never know about. You can just write something like, I am tired, this is all I will write, boring day, or something like that, and that'll still be better than nothing. But remember, the hardest part is always starting. If you go and sit down with the intent of writing just one sentence, you'll find it easier to add more and more, and then you might have a better entry than none at all still. There will also be days where you do not feel like writing anything at all. However, I still encourage you to write at least something. One of Theodore Roosevelt's most famous journal entries is actually quite short. On February 14, 1884, Roosevelt's mother and wife passed away on the same day, and all he wrote was, "The light has gone out of my life." You have to stick to the habit, even on the worst days. If forgetting to write is something that you begin falling into, then I recommend putting your journal in places where you visit often. Put it in front of your computer, put it in front of your bed, put it somewhere where you'll see it. Now, with all that being said, there's a high chance that you do not like how I journal, and that's perfectly fine. I still encourage you to journal regardless. Here are a few ideas that I could come up with that might suit you better. Maybe you want to write your journal on a Google Doc. This won't help your handwriting, but if you have a phone, you always have access to your journal. It's also a lot harder to lose. Also in a Google Doc, you can add in pictures, which is something that is harder to do in a paper journal. Plus, you get spell check and can change things you've accidentally written, unlike a handwritten journal. That's good if you messed up a sentence, but be careful. I do not recommend editing your old entries. You could also do a different type of journal, a gratitude journal. A gratitude journal is where you write 3 things you're grateful for every day, and then that's it. They help a lot of people with having a more positive outlook on life. Maybe you like drawing. You could do something like Greg Heffley and include little drawings in your journal. I don't know. Maybe writing daily isn't your thing. Writing weekly is perfectly reasonable too. Just every week, write a summary of the week, or just write something about that day. That's about all the ideas that I could come up with, but hopefully you have an idea of how you can start journaling. Journaling is definitely a great habit that I think more people need to start doing. I love going back to my journal entries 4 years ago and reading about my day. And yes, I do cringe at a lot of things that I write, but don't be scared about that. If you cringe at something from your past, that means you've changed as a person. Regardless, these things age like fine wine. The longer these sit, the more interesting they become to read. At the time of this video's release, we're currently going through 2 major historical events. It'll be interesting in 2, 3, 10 years to go back and read about these from the perspective of someone living through them. But you can only do that if you start writing. Otherwise, those pages and possibly memories could be blank forever. Thanks for watching. Bro, please write a journal.